Destiny 2 Arc Titan build season 21. We're gonna get you guys insane ability regen for all of your abilities. Your nade, your class ability, your super, your melee, everything's gonna come back pretty fast. We're gonna get you guys crazy melee damage buff. Your thunderclap in here is gonna go crazy. I've seen thunderclap do up to 289,000 melee damage. Like my melee is doing that damage, which is pretty insane. We're gonna get you guys good heals on defeat. Every time you punch something, every time you pick up an orb, you're gonna go ahead and heal, and then you're gonna kind of be safe for the most part. And finally, we're gonna get you guys good super damage. I'm also gonna show you guys this secret build that I switched to for damage. A lot of people are not doing this yet, but I know a lot of people will start catching up. But we're gonna show you guys a lot of things that you can switch off and on just for the damage phase. That's really helpful to increase your damage and, you know, more damage for the boss and get things done quicker. So with this build, to be honest with you guys, I struggled to find a good location where I could show it off. I needed a lot more enemies, I needed a lot more ads, I needed tougher enemies, I needed majors, I needed mini bosses, I needed ads that can kind of like show off how strong this build is, because everything else, to be honest, was too easy for this build. The ability regen was too strong. The damage that I was outputting was, if you notice and look at this clip right here, like I have 3 wizards out, I have all the ads out, I'm the only player in here, and it's just being handled so easily. So like I said, this is the first location that I found, which is in the new dungeon, and the second location that I found to kind of show off this build is in a Legends story mission that I kind of like to show off my builds, because again, the enemies are a little bit more tougher, there's mini bosses in here, and you can kind of see how strong this build is. There's this one clip I really wanted to show you guys that I was able to get a perfect timing on, and this is me one-shotting a legendary guardian, wizard, whatever it is, in one melee. I had to perfectly time it, which is charging my thunderclap and also receiving melee damage from somebody else and also being surrounded. So it had to be a little perfect, very similar to this melee right here. I had to be surrounded, I had to take melee damage because it increases my melee damage by 40%, and again, being surrounded by Synthoceps helps me do more melee damage. But if you haven't understand the goal of this build, it is really just to be surrounded by enemies and punching enemies. If you want to focus on a main target, somebody that's like a yellow bar or somebody that has a lot of health, make sure you're surrounded. Don't take out all the little ads first, leave all the little ads first, deal with the major targets, with the guys that have the most health first, and then worry about the little ads, because if you're going to clear out all the little ads, you're not going to have any surrounding damage, and that's where your damage come from, is from being surrounded. That's why I left those ads on top, so I'm able to one-shot this mini boss very easy. So it's like understanding the build so you know how it works, but again, you just can simply punch anything and everything and it will work. But getting into the actual build for Arc Titan season 21, the first thing we're going to go ahead and talk about is the stats. The first thing I recommend is 100 resilience. Right after, I recommend is 100 discipline, and finally 100 strength. Normally I wouldn't recommend strength because you have unlimited arc abilities when you activate knockout, and I would recommend recovery, but in a way this class needs to be surrounded by enemies at all times, and you need to be punching at all times, and that's kind of how you heal. Whenever you defeat an enemy with your melee, you're always going to start health regeneration, and because you defeated him with the melee, you're going to create an orb, and that orb is also going to heal you. So kind of the goal of the build is to be in close range and surrounded, and we're going to kind of benefit from the healing of being in close range and surrounded. So no reason to really have recovery. So I ended up putting it on strength so we can consistently have our thunderclap, and our thunderclap does serious damage if you notice from the previous clip. So good thing to have strength. So resilience, discipline, strength. Next thing we're going to go ahead and talk about is the mods, starting off with the helmet. We have hands-on, we have harmonic siphon, and heavy ammo finder. Heavy ammo finder can be changed for anything else, including dynamo, which is like using your class ability next to an enemy, which we're already going to be surrounded. So if you want to even get your super even faster to use it on random things, random mini bosses as well, you can. But again, this is optional. Moving on to the arms, this is where most of our melee damage is coming from, is the exotic Synthoceps. While surrounded, our melee and our super damage is increased. Our super damage is increased by 50%, and our melee damage is increased, I believe, by 200%. And it also increases your melee lunge range as well. But for the mods, we have focusing strike, we have heavy handed, and impact induction. Impact induction, since we're going to be punching a lot of stuff, is going to bring down our grenade cooldown. Since we're going to be defeating a lot of stuff with our melee, we're going to be making an orb, and an orb is going to heal us. And then since we're also going to be punching a lot of stuff, we're also going to get back our class ability as well. Moving on to the chest piece, these normally change depending on what you're doing, so these are not that important, but depending on what activity you want to go ahead and match your defensive mods. Moving on to the boots, we're rocking orbs of restoration, we have recuperation, and intervention. Intervention, whenever we pick up orbs, it gives us grenade energy. Whenever we pick up an orb, it heals us. And then whenever we pick up an orb, it gives us ability or ability energy to our least charge ability. Finally, the class item, we're rocking bomber. Whenever we use our class ability, since we're going to be using it consistently, which is our dodging, is going to give us grenades. And whenever we use our class ability, is going to give us back our class ability so we can get more grenade energy. And finally, whenever we defeat anything right after using our class ability, since we're going to be using it consistently, we're going to also get another orb. And picking up orbs, we already said, is going to give us a lot of this abilities back and heals us as well. So that is kind of the mods, and that kind of makes up a lot of the build. Moving on to the actual subclass and the abilities, we're using thruster. Thruster is because it's the least charged ability, like it takes the least time to come back. This one is 38 seconds, this one is 48 seconds, this one is sitting at 36. Nothing crazy. If you want the little shield, you can go with the little shield, but again, we're using this one so we can use it as most consistent as often, so it can charge down a lot of our other abilities. I like to use strafe jump. We're using thunderclap. If you want to use shoulder charge, you're more than welcome to, because I believe shoulder charge should be on a lower cooldown, 131. If anything, I would just probably use thunderclap because it does so much more damage, but if you need blinding effect, then you could always go with the shoulder charge. I'm using pulse grenades because pulse grenades are the one that got buffed this season. They're doing 20% more damage than the rest, and the charge time is pretty decent in comparison to the rest as well. It's moving on to the aspects. We have knockout and we have thunder, touch of thunder. Knockout allows us to have unlimited arc abilities. All you have to do is weaken an enemy or break their shields, and your arc, like even if you don't have your arc ability up, your regular melee will be infused with arc. So in a way, you're always gonna have your arc ability. And then touch of thunder is just improving our grenade depending on which grenade we choose. We're using pulse grenade, so it's making them last longer. And it creates iconic traces periodically as it damages targets, so it gives us back our grenades as well. For the fragments, we're rocking Spark of Resistance, Spark of Feedback, Spark of Magnitude, and Spark of Ions if you just want to go ahead and copy. But again, Spark of Resistance will give you resist while you're surrounded. Spark of Feedback will increase your melee damage by 40% if you get meleeed. So it's good to get meleeed by a thrall or a random ad that you can take damage by and then use your melee. We have Spark of Magnitude, which allows our grenade to last longer, or at least like linger longer. And finally, Spark of Ions, which is defeating jolted target creates an iconic trace. Ionic trace, not iconic, ionic trace. So regarding the artifact mods, the one that I decided to choose for Arc is Arc mods cost less, melee mods cost less, you stay amplified longer. You want to go ahead and get amplified so you can do more damage with your super, either when you're amplified or critically wounded. You go ahead and gain resistance while you're amplified, and whenever you throw your grenade, or at least arc grenade, you gain increased arc rechargeability for your nade, and if you defeat enemies with it, it also increases that benefit. And finally, arc final blows while you're amplified summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. So you're always going to be jolting target with this mod. You're always going to be recharging your grenades. You're always going to be resistant, and you're always going to be amplified and doing more damage while you're amplified. So these are the artifact mods. Final thing I want to go ahead and talk about is the weapons and the secret build that I haven't showed you guys yet. This is the one that I switched to for damage. This is my regular arc one, and this is my damage, the one that's ready for super damage when I'm about to defeat the bosses. But regarding the weapons, the one that I really recommend the most is the Out of Bounds with the Titan. Since he can consistently melee and do good melee damage, he has unlimited reloads, and since his melee is an arc ability, it's going to trigger golden tricorn, allowing this weapon to consistently do 50% damage. I know I don't shoot it a lot in the clips, I'm just punching a lot, but you can shoot this weapon and it shreds, because again, you're gonna have golden tricorn active at all times from the knockout. Knockout is whenever you break a shield or you weaken an enemy, your regular punch, not even your active, just your punch comes an arc ability, and since you have arc ability active, that means you get to reactivate golden tricorn consistently. So this is like probably the one weapon I recommend, and since you're going to be punching, it's going to reload, so consistent 50% damage. And really quickly, our damage build, this is the one, the secret one I talked about, I switched to. You want to make sure when you switch, so you lose your abilities, you don't lose your weapon ammo, you don't lose your class ability energy, you don't lose your energy, you keep the same perks, you keep everything the same. If you notice, when I switch between these two, they're the exact same, because if anything is different, you're going to lose your ability regen, you're going to lose your super, you're going to lose all of that. So make sure the same. The next thing you want to make sure is the weapons are the same, because if the weapons are not the same, you're going to lose your ammo. Other than that, you can change anything else, and this is the important stuff that I recommend for you changing. Number one, if you're noticing, look at the exotic. The exotic is changing. Why is the exotic changing? Because this allows us to do 100% more super damage. The other exotic allows us to do 50% more damage, but we have to be surrounded. But when we switch to this for damage phase, this allows our super to do 100% more damage, and we don't have to be surrounded, just on impact. The next thing I recommend for you guys to change is depending on the weapons that you're using. If you see what I'm using right here, I'm using an arc weapon. I want to make sure to hit those crit shots. So what am I doing? I'm going over to the helmet and I'm putting on double targeting arc mod. This is a burst weapon and it makes a night and day difference when I have arc targeting than when I don't. Just the crit shots just start automatically going to the head. Another thing I have on is radiant light. Since the first thing I'm going to do is cast my super or use my super to just go hit them with 100% damage, it's going to give my teammates an armor charge. And if my teammates have the right mods on, this is going to allow them to do more damage. So I normally wouldn't rock these mods on my regular build because they don't benefit my regular gameplay. You know, these are better for my regular gameplay and running around. But when it comes to doing damage for the boss, which is I'm not really going to be running around other than just shooting at the boss directly, I'm going to try to improve all these mods that I have available for the damage of the boss. Regarding arms, I didn't change too much because I still need to heal off of the melee in the exact same way in case I need to run around. So the arms didn't change. For the chest, what I did is double unflinch. So whenever I'm sitting in the well and the boss is like beaming you, or thralls are hitting you, or things are just shooting at you while you're in the well, so this makes the shots to hit easier, crit shots. And of course you can go reserves if you want, but I'm going double unflinch. For the boots, I'm going for arc damage boost, so double surges. And then since I'm going to use my kinetic while my auto loading is kicking in, I also don't want to reload my primary weapon. So this is getting bonus damage, and this is getting auto reloaded, and this is getting auto reloaded. So normally I would unload all this, then I would go to my arbalist, start shooting my arbalist, and then I'll go back to this, and then this will already be reloaded, if that makes sense. So this is also not part of my normal build because it doesn't benefit me running around and recharge of abilities, but it does benefit me when I am doing damage to the boss. Final thing that I have right here that is kind of important is time dilation, which is increases the time of my armor charges. So whenever I have the orbs to do this, instead of draining fast, it takes a little longer to drain. And the next thing that I got is also so I can pick up all those orbs, like whenever I'm in a well, so I don't have to go looking for them or find them wherever they went. I could just simply use my class ability, which is my dodge, and it picks up all the orbs for me. And again, I want to pick up the orbs so I can do damage with my bonus damage with the surges. And again, this is what I switched to, and I recommend every character to have one. The hunter should have one, the titan should have one, a class that you switch to for super, and not only just for super damage benefit, but also the whole entire thing. Like all these mods, you're going to be sitting in a well for most of the time, so might as well have them benefit you to do damage. And that's kind of like the secret tip I got for you. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.